Hey guys, this is Mitchell and this is going to be a recap of our second lesson together. Now if you watched my first video, a lot of these principles are going to heavily apply to what we went over with our on-leash training. The principles are the same, the only thing that's changing is the method used. So if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend you go check it out. It's going to really help you understand everything we're going to go over in today's video. So without further ado, let's get started. In this video, we'll be going over Ecollar nomenclatures, functions, and features. We'll be going over Ecollar safety, how your dog understands the Ecollar, and practicing safe training habits.
We use a variety of e-collars based off of the dog's breed, size, titration level, and the owner's preference. Starting with the ME300 Micro Educator. This e-collar is rated for dogs 20 pounds or less. It delivers a lower level stimulation, and the receiver is slightly smaller than the other models. The ET300 Mini Educator. It is rated for dogs 20 pounds or more. It is our most commonly used e-collar and is a great level for beginner training and all standard household pets. The ET400 Educator series is rated for large or more intense dogs and will deliver a stronger stimulation. The EZ900 Easy Educator is much like the ET300. The main difference is the button configuration and layout. The LCD screen is much larger and displays more information, and the transmitter sits better in your hand. This e-collar is available upon request at an additional charge. While it is more versatile, it is also more complex and takes a little bit more time to get used to. For starters, we have your transmitter and we have your receiver. First, we'll be going over the transmitter. This here is your stimulation level dial. It goes from 0 to 100 or high if turned clockwise. If you press down on it for 3 seconds, it'll lock in whatever number you're at. Next, we have your antenna, which is effective for up to a half-mile range. Your momentary stimulation button delivers a single stimulation, whether pressed or held down. Your continuous stimulation button delivers a continuous stimulation for up to 10 seconds when held down. Your LCD display screen tells you what level of stimulation you're delivering. It also displays what your momentary and continuous configurations are set to. Your battery indicator light turns red when a stimulation is being delivered. It also flashes red on its own if the remote needs to be charged. The lanyard attached is for the included lanyard to hang around your neck. On the reverse side of your transmitter, we'll begin with the tone vibrate button. You can adjust this to either by turning your stimulation level dial all the way to 0 and pressing the on and off transmitter button as well as the tone vibrate button at the same time. The on-off magnetic red dot turns on your receiver when touching the corresponding red dot. The mode control or your settings button allows you to go in and adjust your momentary and continuous configurations. The on-off transmitter power and light button turns your transmitter on and off when it's held down and doubles for the power button for the light on the receiver. When pressed once, it will be a flashing light. When pressed twice, it will be a constant light, and the third time turns the light off. The charging port has a waterproof seal and is where you plug in your cable. Moving over to your receiver, you of course have your collar, your contact points, which is what the stimulation is delivered through, your corresponding on-off magnetic red dot, and your LED indicator light. When flashing green, your charge is full. When flashing orange, will need charge soon, and red of course means dead battery.
Okay, now that we've established our e-collar nomenclatures, functions, and features, now we're going to go over e-collar safety. So we're going to go over how to put the e-collar on your dog. For this demonstration, this is going to be your dog. We just want to make sure that the e-collar is not on the 6 o'clock position or on the 12 o'clock position. There's a lot of soft tissues in the throat. There's also a lot of nerves and stuff going on right there at the base of the skull. So we want to make sure that it's anywhere outside of those areas. I always aim for the big muscle that's right behind the dog's ear. That's a great place to start. When you go to put it on, you want to make sure that it's nice and tight, just so that these probes are making contact with the dog's skin. So if they have a thick coat, it's something to think about when putting it on. Another reason to make sure that it's nice and tight on the dog's neck is so that if they go to drink water or they shake their body, it doesn't rock down to that 6 o'clock position. So you want it nice and tight to where even if your dog does do that shake, it's not rocking down. You can even take a Sharpie and mark what notch you're using so you can refer back to it in the future once you take the collar off and you go to put it back on. Once your collar is on nice and tight, you can take this excess and feed it through both of those rings and then back through the round ring, just like that. I like to leave a little extra just in case if I'm dealing with a younger dog who may be growing in the coming months, I'm giving them room to grow. Now that we've established how your dog wears the e-collar, we can move into other safety tips. When wearing this e-collar, it's making constant contact with the skin. So keep in mind, if your dog gets wet or is at the river for the day, it's important to take that e-collar off and let their neck breathe. A lot of times when those probes are making that constant contact, it's rubbing and it creates a lot of friction and potentially irritation on your dog's skin. Throughout the day, it is okay to let your dog have the e-collar on the entire time. I recommend taking it off overnight or when you leave the house and just throwing it on the charger. I kind of treat mine like my phone, and if I know something's going to happen throughout the day, I make sure it's already on the dog just in case I need it. In some circumstances, dogs tend to scratch at the e-collar and say, hey, this isn't comfortable, showing signs of irritation. It's okay to just swap it over to the other side if it's been in that same spot for a while. Just for the few minutes I had it on, you can tell that the e-collar making constant contact with your skin will leave a little bit of an impression, as long as it's not on forever and it's not scabbing or causing any sort of irritation or lesions on their skin. Finally, when my dog's wearing the e-collar, this is personal preference, but I like to have the indicator light facing me. So if I called my dog Dodger's name and I said Dodger and he looks at me and I'm using that light feature, I can see where he's at. Versus if it was a little bit lower or facing the other way, a lot of times I wouldn't be able to see it or it would be buried into his chest. Okay, now that we've established e-collar safety, let's get into how your dog understands the e-collar. So, if you watched my last lesson video, I went over the leash and the correction versus the commands. This is a very similar concept, the only difference is the method of correction. So if I were to give my dog a command, say sit, and he doesn't do it, typically from what we've learned so far, I would give a correction on the leash, say no, and repeat the command sit. If he still doesn't do it, I would go up in intensity on that leash correction, no, repeat the command sit, and rinse and repeat that cycle. So if I were to practice the same concept with an e-collar, I would use this momentary button as the correction, which will be paired with the no. So what it would look like is sit, no, sit, he still doesn't do it, I'm going to go up at whatever increment is recommended for your dog, and I'll say no, and repeat the command sit. If he still doesn't do it, I'll go up a little bit more, no, rinse and repeat that cycle. At no point will you hold down the continuous button at a high level until your dog sits. It's a common mistake I see. Another common mistake I see is owners that will pair the command with the correction. This is very important not to do because eventually the command will become the correction. These are things that happen and they induce fear, confusion, anxiety in dogs and will diminish your relationship as well as their confidence and their obedience. When delivering a command versus a correction, it's also important to make sure that we're taking our time and separating them. If I say sit, no sit, the dog's very confused that everything happens so fast. It doesn't give them time to process and apply what you're asking them to do. It also doesn't give them an opportunity to make the correct decision and is not fair. So I recommend saying sit, give them an opportunity. Once they decided they're not going to, or they do the opposite and turn away from you, that's when you deliver a correction. No, sit, and you separate the command and the correction, mainly to not create any confusion. The idea is to be as clear as possible for your dog to understand what you're asking of them. That way, when they fully understand the command and task, you can hold them accountable. If they don't understand it and you correct them anyway, it deteriorates that confidence and that relationship with your dog. Last but not least, we're going to cover practicing safe training habits with your dog. Now, A lot of this may sound like common sense to you. I'm not saying to insult anyone's intelligence. I just want to be very clear. If you're going to take your dog somewhere and unclip the leash, make sure that it's in a controlled environment. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a fenced-in facility, area, or a location. It all boils down to knowing your dog and their tendencies. I wouldn't personally recommend anyone have their dog off leash near a road, whether it's busy or not, but this more pertains to those dogs that are reactive or may have issues with people or other dogs or animals. For example, let's say your dog has reactivity issues or doesn't get along well with other dogs or people. Taking them to a park, even on a slow day, is still a park. There's a likelihood that there's going to be someone or another dog or animal at some point during your time there. So it may not be a great idea to unclip your dog. You can still practice your on-leash skills or even your 15-foot leash obedience skills to control your dog in the event that something like that happens. Another thing that's easier said than done is controlling other people. You simply can't. And I'm only saying this because it happens. But if you have a situation where another person approaches you or another dog approaches you off leash and your dog is also off leash, your dog should have a very reliable recall. If you've maintained that, use that to your advantage to get your dog to come back to you as soon as possible. Accidents are accidents. They happen. The biggest thing that we can do is set preventative measures to prevent them as much as possible. So practicing good judgment and safe handling skills when on or off leash, depending on the environment, is going to be crucial to your dog's training, and it will also prevent any issues that may affect them later on down the road. As crazy as it sounds, one bad encounter with a dog versus another dog can shape their perception of that variable altogether for a very long time. Now, this isn't to scare anyone out of taking your dog places and unclipping their leash and allowing them to enjoy that off-leash freedom that they worked really hard to learn and they deserve. This is simply to inform you of situations that could and that have happened, so that you, the owner, can be informed of the risk versus the benefits moving forward in y'all's endeavors. That's all I got for you. I hope that was helpful. If you need me at any point in time, you know where to reach me. Thanks again, and good luck to you guys. Bye.